Good morning, welcome to a morning review on Monday the 15th of May. Firstly, looking at the euro dollar, Friday's price action with the weak US data, retail sales, inflation, saw us end up with quite a rally, and it held on to its gains on Friday on the euro dollar, leaving this bullish pivot swing. Question now, of course, it's running into some resistance and just hit the weekly pivot actually, which is quite nicely out of the way, but is whether it can continue in this full direction. As I say, has put a bullish daily pivot swing on there. So let's have a look at where we are on the 4 hours now. Hasn't pushed up particularly strong through the Asian session here, has just held on to gains rather than capitalized and moved up at the moment. We do have a daily pivot sitting below us now. There's some potential if it starts rolling over, or would be looking maybe at the play back down to the daily pivot there. If it rolls over on this, we just have to watch post 8 o'clock for me. Now, of course, it may just break through this, bounce off the 60.21s, which it hasn't done yet either. So just a bit wary this morning on the euro. There is a bit of weakness in terms of the previous high there. There's a couple of highs in there, and there's a bit of a double divergence actually running through this on this hourly picture over that period. So it'll be interesting to see how we move from that as we continue through this early stage in the morning. Aside of that, there's nothing else to mention on the euro dollar. Let's have a look at the pound and sign off the bigger picture here. And again, well, actually, the pound didn't really gain too much on Friday. It's a bit of a weak move, and it hasn't done too much. We've seen it push up into its weekly pivot here this morning, and quite a strong move up into that. Now it would appear actually on first glances here, it has just run up to the 50. Sorry, I just need to check something on a different time frame. Almost up to its upper band there for our traders on the dailies. So let's just go down the time frames here. So again, untouched daily pivot below us. So it'd be again interesting to see how we push out. We have run into, as I say, the weekly pivot, the R1 early move here, and well, it is a case for me to be a bit patient this morning and watch this run. If it does retrace, there's opportunities to maybe move with a long position. I'd like to see the euro be running up as well. If I was looking at the long on this, there is the potential we could just chop along this morning. We do sometimes see this, particularly on Mondays and Tuesdays, Wednesday. No. Okay, let's have a look at dollar yen. So the dollar yen continued its retracement on Friday. It's long awaited back to that daily 8 moving average, which well, it seems to have broken just fractionally below that, and we're seeing a little bit of a bounce off that. Again, for the day traders, there's a daily band it's bounced off of. Looking at the 4 hours, well, it's at this stage looking like it may gain a bit of traction from where it is. It was a bit of a pivot swing, so the gap fill and everything running through there on the 4 hourly, and well, it's already run through the daily pivot. Now the question is this morning again, just waiting to see if it runs maybe back towards that 50 possibly, or if it just fails where it is now and rolls back over. So again, the direction in this sort of looking at this more intermediate time frame with the lower lows, lower highs, would be potentially pushing to the downside, and maybe we should be looking at a bit more strength coming into the yen, and if it breaks this trend line, I could be interested in looking for the downside, to say further downside towards maybe the lows, the Asian session lows, and that S1 below. Okay, that's pretty much that. Aussie dollar. What's been going on here? Surprisingly, Aussie dollar's had a good Asian session, bearing in mind China came out with some quite soft data, but it certainly hasn't affected the Aussie too much. They again, oil's had a bit of a push through the Asian session, so it's gained from some commodity pricing. I've just come down from, sorry, I'll just flick back to that daily. And well, daily wise, it's a bit of a weak one. Every time it did manage to push any gains last week, it pulled back. It had two inside days there effectively. Friday pushed up there, started breaking, but it's pulled back. Well, we pushed up and through the Asian session last night, and it's coming rising into this morning. Not quite there, double top territory, but getting back towards, there's a sort of a zone there about 74 area, which we've seen about three attempts already on this 4 hourly to break through. Now, maybe the time. We have got an untouched weekly pivot below us, so any sell-offs here coming through this morning would be a reasonable target at some point to be heading for. Now, as I said, it's beaten the move we would have expected with the Chinese data coming out bad and it being very reliant on China for its trade, but all the same, it seems to be bucking that trend at the moment. It is also putting higher lows, higher highs in on this hourly time frame, and from an intermediate point of view, it may still be seen as relatively erring more bullish. Now, if it starts failing this morning, well, you can see the bigger time frame is more certainly in the downward trend here, and well, any sort of rollover may see it run back towards those prior daily lows at some point. Okay, and finally, Canadian dollar. So a bit of strength shown here. As I said, oil prices have picked up, and in fact, let me just flick onto the oil price here briefly. You see a big surge through the Asian session, even if I've only could say it, put my teeth back in. Looking maybe for back towards its monthly pivot at some point on oil. Let's come back to the Canadian dollar, which it's highly correlated with, and that could be doing the same sort of thing. We've been in a very tight range over the last week or so on the dailies here. It could be finally trying to break the lows of that, moving back towards that daily 21 and maybe the monthly pivot. Shorter term, intermediate term frame, you can see how choppy it was effectively last week, and we're just on that. We're just breaking at 100 at the moment and starting to head towards the absolute lows there. Maybe this weekly pivot may hold it until it gives it some support in the short term, but it certainly does look from this chop zone that it could roll over any stage, which it looks like it's doing as I'm talking. Now, even if it doesn't move immediately south here, it's certainly got the possibility to continue pushing through to that daily 21 at some point. Okay, that's it for me. Pretty much covered everything. There's very little news today. Empire State Manufacturing at 1:30 US data, and then the Prime Minister May, UK Prime Minister, speaking at 8 p.m, which is unlikely to move the markets. So have a great day. Bye for now.